welcome. Hi, hello. Let's turn that up just a smidge. Thank you for joining me today. Isn't it wonderful to witness another sunrise? I am, one sec. I am your gracious host, Bjorkbox. And today I decided that I would do a little bit of an introduction as I've been introducing some people to this game and figured a primer might be in order. Today's video, we are going to walk through the process of sort of witnessing the process of essentially character creation, what functions for that in this game. Now, this may seem a little bit daunting. I will not be going through it exhaustively, but we can start quite simple here. For this, I have disabled most of the DLC with the exception of Synthetic Dawn and Utopia. This being because those are the only two included in the Starter Edition, which is separate to the base game of Stellaris. On the left here, we have a number of pre-generated races that are, or empires, sorry, that are bespoke experiences invented by the developers for different playstyles. So we have the, I suppose, intended tutorial, almost, sort of experience. The United Nations of Earth, a Starfleet-inspired sort of playstyle, beacon of liberty. They're a shining beacon of light in a sea of darkness. Liberty and individual freedoms are held in the highest regard. An idealistic foundation. These are the civics. The society was founded on strong idealistic values. Whether the current government remains true to them or not, the people have not forgotten. There are xenophiles and fanatic egalitarians. So they want to make friends and they want to spread democracy, managed or otherwise, in some form or another. Then they're also organic, because you can have robots, and lithoids are in here somewhere, but they're locked behind one of the DLC. Lithoid is a kind of like a rock person, essentially. They are adaptive, this is true, and nomadic, so they like to move around between planets a lot. They're also wasteful, so they use a lot of consumer goods. You have the antithesis to this, so, and I'm only going to go through like one more after this. You have the Commonwealth of Man. The story behind this, essentially a lost colony, they went through a wormhole that opened up in the middle of the solar system, or out on the outskirts of it. This was the only one that survived that trip, and they had to make do starting from scratch on a hostile alien planet, a jungle moon around a gas giant, where it has fomented a xenophobic, fanatic, militarist sort of society. The racial traits of the species remains the same in this case, but the formation of the civilization has taken a very different approach. The Tebrad homologue. This is an interesting concept that comes out. So this is the idea. Essentially, we're looking at the Borg here. They are machine type. They are good at research, and their leaders learn quite fast. And the models are a little bit inefficient to make, so they use more resources than they would otherwise to design to actually physically build more models. The reason I mentioned the Borg here, we start off with driven assimilator, which means we get a lot more extra pop pops. It's like citizens, essentially. They are cyborgs. So essentially, we've risen up, we've taken over, we've conjoined with the organic civilization on the planet and are using them as auxiliary processors. And we're all beholden to this hive mind, centralized intelligence sort of thing. Let's see. Static research analysis. The machine intelligence seeks to broaden its available avenues of scientific research through low-level evaluation of research hypotheses. Yeah. So there's that. Moving on. We're also a Gestalt consciousness, which is essentially, as I described previously, it's a centralized intelligence rather than a bunch of interacting actors. This is, everything is beholden to a executive sort of position. This is the other side of that, where you have actually so these are, I'll go as far as this because this gets into like, you know, basically every kind of government that exists. You got the spiritualists ones down here in the Trade League, but these are all kind of a different flavor of the same thing. You have driven a simulator, so this civic forces you into particular, or doesn't force you into it, but opens up a particular playstyle. You cannot do diplomacy. I think you can, as normal, more or less, with other... Okay, so you can do normal diplomacy with other empires, but you have a reduced opinion because, obviously, at the back of your mind is the constant drive to assimilate other species, and at the back of their mind is, oh, they want to turn us into hard drives. Now, this is the slightly less extreme version of that. We have a rogue servitor. What is this? The secondary one. So this just makes the government part slightly more efficient and makes it easier to talk to other people, other empires. These ones start with additional people on the planet that are essentially trophies. They're called biotrophies. So a nanny service net has run amok and is trying to spread the joy of a permanent vacation in the most very literal sense to every organic that they come across. They're like, okay, we don't need to put that stress upon them. We're going to take care of everything. That's fine. Then we have Determined Exterminator. You can kind of fill in the blank for this one. Whereas these ones, the homologs, are trying to assimilate everything. The exterminators are trying to exterminate everything. And that's one of, you know, this shows off a number of unique civics. You can kind of get I think that this is the same one for the organic species as well. So you can start as an organic empire down here somewhere that are also determined exterminators. That being said, I'm going to go through the process of creating the United Nations of Earth and following it as a template to kind of simplify, because there are so many options and we'll be here for the next 3 hours otherwise. Now, again, I have most of the DLC, it's disabled, but the base game is updated with the new DLC as it comes out. The AI empires have access to the DLC content, which is interesting. The couple of exceptions would be the likes of cosmic storms. So this is essentially hurricanes of unfathomable magnitude will randomly emerge throughout the galaxy, and they have different kinds of there are different types. So there's gravity storms, there's radiant storms, which is essentially cosmic particles on all angles, and I think there's dust storms or something. Nebulas. There's even psionic storms, but that's for later. Now, in the base game, we're starting off with humanoid. There's a bunch of different ones here. I personally like going with a particular one here because, okay, order of operations here. We have here species and portrait. We have different classes of racial archetypes. So these are all mammalian of a kind. We've got the psionic goat here that was added in the most recent patch. Oh, it's nice, they added that to the base game. We've got reptiles, avians, arthropods. This is clearly made after a dragon. These have access to, as well as being different kind of species, they have access to different specific traits down here. So I'm not sure if the reptiles specifically will have access to it, or if we even have access to it in this spatial mastery, biogenesis. I thought that was an earlier DLC. Apparently not. Flight also requires biogenesis? For lizards specifically. So if we go over here into the avian, then that will just be unlocked. Or so I thought. That's interesting. I know it's not specific to biogenesis because that is one of the most recent DLC that came out, and I was definitely using that before. But nevertheless, the avians would have access to this, as would the arthropods. And I'll show kind of an example of why that's the case, because everyone's seen a beetle, right? I click on this guy enough times, there we go, they'll do the wing flutter motion. You also have the moth over here, which is it's telling me to turn the DLC on. Let's not worry about that. We can go reptilian. Here's the guys that kind of uninfested. But as I was explaining with this, but this one, as you can kind of see, is like a mammal that's been infested with a fungal infection. Whether it's symbiotic or parasitic, who's to say? But because of that unique makeup, and if I had the appropriate DLC, the game's not very limited by the lack of it. It's a fully functioning game as well, but it does give you the opportunity to kind of see a lot of the things that would be otherwise available. There are traits that are specific to fungoids and plantoids that are kind of crisscross intercorporated with each other as one discrete, like, we have access to this thing sort of arrangement. But this one being a mix of the two would have access to that. And this reptilian here, I would imagine, would be a reptile that has access to flight. We'll go simple here. We'll use one of these. I always think of these creatures as members of a fallen empire, which is another thing that you'll see later on in the game. Essentially, very old empires that are part of the game mechanics, where they might get angry at you or give you gifts depending on how you behave around them. And they're a little bit different from normal empires. But I think of these because one of the first games that I played quite a while on, these guys were the spiritual fallen empire. No, right, we're back. I had recorded some after that, but I forgot I left a candle burning, and it was starting to stress me out a little bit, so the quality was not up to stuff. But here we are, we're back here. Now, portraits, I've clicked this now, so we're not going to see much of the stuff that we don't have access to, which makes it just a little bit simpler to navigate the menu on my end, as well as yours, I imagine, if you have this. We are going to build from scratch essentially a similar playstyle to the intended tutorial experience. We'll be going with the otters, the space otters from the mammalian subclass. I'm a fan of this one because it's this strange sort of like flying monkey lemur situation. We're going with the otters. Now, Origins is interesting. If you have the absolute base game, you get access to um, prosperous unification. This is a very strong early game start. It gives you a boost to your population. It builds some of the districts on your home planet, so additional resources from the get-go and the people to fill in those jobs. And a modifier that basically increases the output of your planet for the first 20 years. You also get a starting technology that gets you into. Oh, okay, I forgot. Alright, I'm gonna have to put a little bit less stress in my voice here. You get into the policies and edicts and how your empire conducts itself in terms of daily operations. The other two options are the Galactic Doorstop, which is essentially you have a Stargate on the edge of your system, just sitting there waiting to pop out at a different part of the galaxy at any moment once you figure out how to use it. And then the third option is the Lost Colony. This is essentially the same primer as this. It's the identical start, but you might end up in a different system. These bespoke starts will usually end up in one specific system. The United Nations of Earth, as you can imagine, starts in the Sol system, which is where we are, SOL. Sol is Sol. It's the name of our star, according to one of the. I think according to Latin. And then the Commonwealth of Man will start in the Deneb system on a jungle moon around a gas giant, or at least I think it's a jungle moon. Sometimes it's random. I have made a pre-generated version of this character in the meantime, which is essentially when I did my earlier recording, but we're going to walk through it again, because that's the point of this video. So we go over here. I will be choosing the Space Otters. The origin is going to be Prosperous Unification, to keep it simple. The other options, as of Synthetic Dawn and Utopia, got those mixed up there. You can start off as a machine intelligence, which I think is a Gestalt consciousness. Yes, this is a hive mind only start. Homeworld prototype machine world consolidated resources. If combined with the driven assimilator is specific, you get planetary features organic slurry. Oh goodness me. There's the hard I forgot if I mentioned, yeah, a machine intelligence has turned our home planet into one big server bank, essentially. All of the organic traces are just gone. There's the hard reset. You start as a number of species on a planet where you were essentially under the control of a centralized intelligence, but have now been let free to do your own thing, presumably as the overarching intelligence has collapsed to some unknown threat elsewhere in the galaxy. There's the Mechanist, essentially a society that's gotten really good at building robotic servants and such. You've got powered exoskeletons, artificial workforce. There's the syncretic evolution. If we could put ourselves into an alternate timeline where the Neanderthals had not went extinct, essentially we have a race that's not quite as intelligent as the primary ones, and are where they happiness, job efficiency for workers and menial drones, cannot generate leaders, and cannot be employed in elite or specialist jobs. A second species forms the integral part of this civilization. They are big, strong, and most of them have the intelligence of a particularly dim-witted child. Ancient warriors have called their species those are most aggressive tendencies, leaving them quite servile. Make of that what you will. And then there's the Tree of Life. So if you play as a hive mind species, you get the Tree of Life, which is kind of like an Yggdrasil or giant guardian tree, kind of like in the old Japanese folklore. I mean, we have a number of them across different cultures on the planet. Any new planets that you get, you have to put a. They would like to put a Tree of Life sapling on it. I think you can transplant the Tree of Life. A network of trees must be established here for our hive to flourish. Yeah, there's a whole complicated system with it. We don't need to worry about it just yet. We have a number of ethics. Some of them are diametrically opposed to each other. You can't be xenophobe and xenophile at the same time, and likewise for the rest of them, spiritualist or materialist. We are going to be going xenophile, so we get a little boost to trade, and we get an additional diplomat called an envoy, meaning that we can establish focused communications with another empire or spy on them. Either or. We'll be going fanatic egalitarian. As a result of this, our political you have a resource called Unity, which affects how you're able to do certain administrative tasks. And you get essentially political parties that will support or work against you. This increases the amount of unity that those political parties produce for you, as well as your that is what is represented as a faction, as well as your specialist pop resources are slightly increased. Now, being fanatic egalitarian, if we were just dipping our toes in, we could be oligarchic, or with the Megacorp DLC, we could be essentially one big conglomerate. Imagine if Google took over the Earth. Well, in a few years, maybe we won't have to imagine, but let's worry about that later. We'll be going democratic. The United Nations of Earth uses Beacon of Liberty and Idealistic Foundation down here somewhere. I would like to try, for our playthrough, Environmentalist and Functional Architecture. Now, what do these do? Environmentalist starts with Ranger Lodges. As you come across planets, and on your own planet, you will have blockers. Shall I illustrate to you the logistic concerns that trying to build a city on Mount Everest might pose? Well, in the game, that is represented as the kind of thing where the Grand Canyons would be presented as a mountain blocker. Mount Everest would be presented as a mountain blocker because it blocks off quite a significant range, or more, I guess, rather than a single mountain, maybe like the Rockies or the big strait that goes across the left half of America all the way up to Alaska. Instead of taking those down to build more districts that are, I think that they would say commercially active, we can go with the Ranger Lodge, and those will produce goods naturally. So a glacier might produce energy credits, a mountain range would produce mining opportunities. Just small amounts of passive income that are brought to the society through this job type, which are rangers essentially. And I think you can have like overgrown jungle, which you can't do a lot with, but can produce food. Functional architecture means that we can skip some starting technological requirements to specialize our districts. At the outset, you have urban districts, energy, mining, and food. And those, each of those can do different things, but you cannot build buildings, specialist buildings, in the free resource producing districts until you get specialization. This allows us to skip that. So as you can imagine, you also require technological unlocks to remove blockers. Environmentalist and functional architecture are very strong for the early game and can be swapped out of later on when you reform your government. Traits. Traits determine the traits of your citizen species within your empire and give various bonuses to jobs or logistic concerns. You have docile here, which means that they have reduced size. Do you have to worry less about urban sprawl and such? Now, we're playing space otters, so I can tell you for a fact otters are very charismatic. They, I would imagine, are adaptive. They do a little bit of light terraforming, kind of like beavers. And was there something else I put here? I imagine they'd be communal because they live in huts together. They're very familial sort of creatures. As you can see here, for choosing all three of these, charismatic also affects stuff like let me put the cursor over here. Politicians, entertainers, bio trophies, like for the rogue servitor network, and maintenance drones if you're a hive mind. Adaptive makes it easier to settle foreign planets, and communal uses less housing. We will be going for our negative traits to make up the difference. We have 2 picks left and three negative points, so we have to make up the difference. We'll be increasing the size from the population, and housing and size are different, so this causes a logistic concern down the way where technology costs will become higher, tradition costs will become higher. I'll get to that in the next video. Are you still with me? Decadent, deviance, fleeting. We'll say sedentary. This means that it will cost more energy credits for us to move them from planet to planet, but otherwise unaffected. It's a very good thing to have. Prosperous unification, I just noticed that there. Nameless. There's quite a lot of funny ones. You can even name the prefix for your ships. I think by default it's ISS. I click on a bunch of these, yeah, it doesn't generate one. I like to call my ships the IBS because I have a lot of friends that deal with that, and I think it's funny. Mammalian is the ones that we'll go for today. You get a couple of funny ones. I don't think there's a little bit of a funny quirk nature to the DLC. I have access to the aquatic names, but if I go here and try to generate a name for the Empire based off of that, it doesn't work, and I'm not sure why. So we'll be going to the mammalian. Yes, I remember my alphabet. Rakan, son of Lethia, Mirk, daughter of Itha, Mubai, son of Gori. A very sort of northern Eurasian naming convention. Kendojan, yes. Well, it pulls from it. These are specific to the name list, and it pulls from a preset. There's the Wasari, the Ivandari, the Wasari again, the Kilnadar, and then it will generate a random name over here based on this name set. You cannot use this without this. But of course you can fill in your own and choose whatever. Homeworld. We can start in a number of different systems. The Commonwealth of Man will always start in the Deep system. The United States of Earth will always be in the Sol system. And there's a couple of other origins that have specific starting systems that are variously locked behind DLC. We'll be starting in the Sol system, because we're otters. Let's just pretend that they, well, come what happens to whatever happens to the human race, or maybe this is just an alternate universe where otters became sentient first, before the primates. And our homeworld is going to be called Teba Zed. With a, well, still, let's oh, let me find a random name here. Green. Feminine noun. From Gaelic. We'll use the Irish Gaelic. Keep it simple. Planet classes. Now, you'll notice dry, wet, and cold. If you start on a dry planet, it's easier to colonize other dry planets. It's even easier to colonize them if they're the same kind of dry planet. And likewise for the other three. There's some... The equivalencies are not direct, but you can kind of... I don't know if there's specific... I think a wet and a cold planet are just as difficult to colonize as each other. There's no sort of rock, paper, scissors here. There's just sort of rock, rock, and rock. So you get the desert world, the ocean world, the Arctic world. There's the arid world, the continental, and the tundra, and then the savanna, the tropical, and the alpine. We're otters, so it kind of just makes sense that we'd be in an ocean world, right? I imagine it's quite good to be, where is it, nomadic, or it's quite good to be able to hold your breath for 15 minutes when your nearest neighbor might be that many minutes, a 5-mile swim away. City and rooms. This is one of my favorite parts. So this determines what you're going to be looking at every time you look at your government, or if you're in a multiplayer game, someone interacts with you, this is the screen that they're looking at. There's interesting ones. I'm quite a fan of the fungi design. There is also, of course, different designs back here in the storage closet, unlocked by DLC. Let's try the fungal one today. Doesn't really matter since we're going with a pre-generated one, but oh goodness, so here's like a lithoid rock person design. Here's like a fleshy hive. Ooh. Here's another crystal rock sort of face. Here's an extremely solar punk design. This was added in Biogenesis. This is like a shell craft. If you have organic ships. Ooh. Definitely recommend the Biogenesis DLC for that reason. You get organic ship sets. And then there's the wilderness design, which was added into the base game. Very nice. I think we'll choose... There was one I found earlier, yes. So we have... You can't really see it for the pole here, but there's like plants and stuff growing at the borders. And there's this nice medieval design. Advisor voices. These are quite interesting.
Did you know that my internal power core has an effective blast yield of over 5 megatons of TNT in the event of a catastrophic overload?
Did you know? Now you do.
Democracy sure is an endless struggle.
Is that it?
Do not be afraid to exercise your individual right to free thought. Please take a moment now to practice.
They have quite a little bit of fun with these announcers. If you get the Psionics DLC, which I think, yeah, the second to last one, does it not
Do
show?
not be afraid to exercise your
Oh, it doesn't. Oh well.
Whoa! Space! Just think about it!
Oh, they're using the trill filter.
We build bridges. We don't raise them.
No, it'll be fine. I'm telling you, just turn off the fail-safes and... Wait, is this thing on?
Self-destruct sequence initiated. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
My goodness.
Descent is forcefully discouraged. These alien savages must be taught to kneel when in the presence of their betters. Shall I?
It is a good day to die.
These alien savages must be taught to kneel when in the presence of their betters. Shall I initiate purging protocols?
Shall I indeed? So you've got... How do I...
Under no circumstances must the Xeno be trusted. It will lie, it will cheat, and it will do anything in its power to undermine the efforts of those who in truth are its superiors.
There we go. So you've got kind of a few archetypes here. I'll let the fit. If you're so inclined, you can even have it in Mandarin.
学无止境，师傅领进门，修行在个人。
Faith manages. Faith manages. Faith manages. Faith manages.
It is.
Faith manages.
Oh, okay. Usually they have different variations, but I guess
I serve the faithful. There is no greater calling.
There we go. It was just
What
stuck
is a single voice compared to a magnificent chorus? Our collective is an island of warmth and harmony in a sea of discord. How cold and lonely it must be to face the darkness of space alone.
Devastating. There was a meme video that someone made at some point where there was like a back and forth between a hive mind and a podcaster. The podcaster ends up joining the hive mind rather forcefully. There's different sort of like recurring media archetypes here. You've got sort of the authoritarian, generic, evil, English man, supervillain sort of thing going on. You've got the xenophobe, which I think is based on 1940s propaganda. There's the there is another one in here somewhere that's similar to egalitarian.
We will have equality, liberty, and justice for all. Or so I've been told. I'm just a robot.
I'm just a robot. I think there's another one that's kind of like communist, but that's behind one of the DLCs. And then you have the militarist. I don't know what it is about this archetype, but there is sort of a recurring thing about a 50s-something, battle-hardened, extremely grizzled mama bear sort of archetype.
Cry havoc and let slip the dogs of war.
As you have it. And then you have the spiritualist and xenophile ones, which are a smidge cloying. Let's... I'm quite a fan of the materialist, but I think we'll go with the egalitarian today, since that's on brand.
Democracy sure is an endless struggle.
I don't want to listen to the trill filter while we're playing. There are a number of different flag options that we have here. I'm going to very quietly, briefly look at one of them, which I believe is the corporate. Is it the... lagging just a bit while it pulls up the JPEG files. Is it Lithoid? Legion? Infernal? Imperial? They are Imperial. There are not one, not two, but three separate references to what this is referencing in the game. I won't enlighten anyone, but if you feel like doing so in the comments, feel free to do so. today I had quite an interesting one in the Imperial, or was it Legion? There we go, kind of like a de-resed sun aesthetic. You can pick the background type of the flag, and you can pick out the different colors. Oh, that's quite gaudy, isn't it? It's got like dark maroon flavor. There we go. Have it in a bowl of soup. Kind of everted, and like a light sign in the middle. No, that's kind of... yeah, a little bit darker. Yes, there we go. Very pleasant to look at. Ship designs. My goodness, they have a lot. You have the reptile, the mammalian, the avian, very sort of chic chrome talon inspired. You have the arthropoid, which are bulbous, kind of like beetle armor sort of looking. And then you have molluscoid, which is very smooth and chic and sort of slimy inspired. There's some very interesting designs. So the different ship types, you have the corvette, your standard TIE fighter. You have the frigate, which is like a missile boat. You have the destroyer, which is a little bit more advanced than the first one. A cruiser. A battleship. A construction ship. Your colony ship. Let me show off some of the different designs here. A science ship. And a citadel, and finally the Habitat Central Complex, which essentially is an artificial planet. I really like showing this one off because of the different distinct designs. This is very Terran inspired, I feel, looking at this one. And then the avians have this sort of Protoss mothership kind of design, as well as the molluscoid, or is it the fungoid? There we go. Kind of vaguely similar design. Almost the I don't remember what they're called. They're not the Tal Shiar, that's the extremist faction of the Romulans, but oh, it's completely lost to me. There's like the Red Elves in StarCraft. I don't know why it's randomly changing the camera angle. There we go. Here's the arthropoid. Kind of looks like a plant, doesn't it? Anyway, we'll be going with the molluscoid because I quite like the aesthetics, and it's the closest thing that we can currently get to aquatic. Finally, we have ruler appearance. Cebu, daughter of Stair. Go, female. You have the different color variants for your portraits and different clothing. Now, part of why I like this background, doesn't it look so dapper and chic with the royal clothing here? And here's the different generic sounds for the mammalian class. If we go over here, species and portrait, if I pick perhaps a handsome bug here, go over here. Oh goodness, that's quite loud, isn't it? Where's the species? Mammalian. Space otters. Ruler appearance. Cebu, daughter of Stair. And they're a redhead, because why not? We also have, finally, our different ruler traits. Your starting ruler, your starting president, executive, chair, whatever variation of the government that you're using. You can be an official, a commander, or a scientist. If you're playing as a hive mind, this is locked in at the start of the game because obviously your centralized intelligence is never going to change. But that does determine what kind of traits that your counselor can get as they level up. A very good one for an official is to be principled because that gives a stability to your planet, and stability means the planet's more stable, resource flow is more streamlined, everything is a little bit better, happiness, and whatnot. The other very powerful one is leader experience gain, eye for talent. So as you go through the game, your leaders will get more experience, and this just makes that process a little bit more efficient. So you can get more skills for your counselors earlier in the game, and they'll get better at doing their jobs. We're going to go with a scientist, and we are going to go with... you can get research speed. Say that a technology is going to take you 20 months to unlock. With research speed at +3, that would only take 19 months. We'll be going with eye for talent, because that's going to make everyone in government a little bit better at their job a little bit faster. Now I'm going to pretend to hit the save button, but we're going to hit back. Let's start here again at the beginning of the next video, where I hope you will join me to start playing as the Rec Falaran administration.